I never imagined a janitor's kind words could change my life forever. My CEO mom was watching. I can still hear the silence that fell around me, that heavy weight of expectation. I stood in the extravagant lobby of our high-rise, all glass and steel, where the air hummed with ambition and power. I was supposed to be proud, but instead, I felt like a ghost in a room full of giants. Then there he was, the janitor, his uniform faded and stained, a stark contrast to my crisp designer dress. I often ignored him, avoided eye contact, half embarrassed to share space with someone deemed beneath me. But that day changed everything. I saw him pause, his broom still in hand, as he caught my eye. His gaze was steady, unwavering, like he could see right through me. "Miss," he said softly, his voice rich with warmth, "don't be afraid to shine." Simple words, but they landed with the force of a freight train. My heart raced. My mom was just a few feet away, her piercing eyes glued to me, dissecting each move. I wanted to scream, "Who are you to tell me to shine?" But instead, a knot formed in my throat. We were worlds apart. He was invisible, just someone who cleaned up after people like us. The rich, the powerful, and yet his stare felt like a lifeline. In that moment, an odd thrill coursed through me. His words seeped into my very bones, igniting something buried deep inside, something I thought I'd lost forever. I could almost hear the whispers of my mother grow louder, a relentless storm of disappointment. In my mind, I pictured her, the CEO, immaculate, always in control. People admired her, feared her. But me? I was just her shadow, the girl who could never meet the family legacy. The clock ticked loudly, echoing my rising panic. "Shine," I whispered under my breath, testing the word like it was a delicate secret. Would it burn? Would it break me? Memories flooded back the countless times I slumped at the dinner table, hearing my mother's lectures about ambition, about being the best, while I shrank under the weight of her dreams. But now, in the tension of that moment, I couldn't tell if the heaviness was fear or something else, a strange flicker of defiance. And then the janitor smiled. It was small and worn, but there was a power behind it. His eyes sparkled, like he knew something I didn't. Something important, something life-changing. Suddenly, the lobby, with its polished surfaces and corporate hustle, felt surreal, like a stage set teetering on the edge of collapse. Could he see the cracks, the fissures in my carefully constructed facade? I needed to know. Just as I was about to speak, a crash echoed through the lobby, a sound of glass shattering. Gasps erupted around me, chaos unfolding, and in that blinding moment, he turned and walked away, his presence fading into the turmoil like vapor. I was left standing there, heart pounding, breath hitching, swirling in uncertainty. What had just happened? Words so simple, yet profound. Why had all eyes turned to me? And why did the janitor's farewell feel like a premonition? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The days that followed were a blur of chaos and uncertainty. I pushed through meetings and conference calls, my mind a mess of competing thoughts. The janitor's words echoed endlessly in my mind, mingling with the disapproval of my mother that loomed like a dark cloud above me. It felt as if my reality had split in two, the polished world of corporate expectations on one side, and the raw, authentic urge to embrace my own identity on the other. I sat at my desk, staring blankly at a sea of spreadsheets. A sense of urgency gnawed at me. I couldn't shake the feeling that the janitor had unlocked something within me that yearned for expression. Each glance at the office door, so world I knew so well, frustrated me. I didn't belong here, at least not entirely. IT was on a late Thursday afternoon, just as the last remnants of sunlight filtered through the skyscrapers, that I finally ventured beyond my familiar territory. My heart raced as I descended the steps to the lobby, certain he wouldn't be there. But hope fluttered in my chest as I pushed past the entrance, scanning the room with an anxious eye. And there he was. His uniform was the same, but there was something else to confidence, perhaps. He was sweeping up confetti from a small celebration, a festive reminder that some employees had gotten awards that day. I approached hesitantly, my heart pounding louder than the whispers of the crowd around us. "Excuse me?" My voice was unsteady, and I could feel a weight settling in my stomach as I tried to form coherent thoughts. "I wanted to thank you for what you said the other day." He looked up, surprise flickering across his weathered face. "Those were just words, miss," he replied with a gentle smile, nudging a wide sweep of confetti into a dustpan. But I could see that he understood. "No, they weren't just words to me," I insisted, my voice firming. "They meant something. They made me rethink everything." I hesitated, the gap between our worlds yawning wider. "Can I ask you something? How do you manage to stay so grounded? You're not just a janitor." His brow furrowed slightly, and for a moment he paused, as if weighing my question carefully. "You'd be surprised how much you can learn from those around you," he said slowly. "It's not about what you do. It's about how you choose to see yourself." Another weighty silence hung between us, a moment that felt almost sacred, bridging our disparate lives. "You have a gift," he continued, leaning on his broom, "a light that you've been taught to hide. Don't be afraid to let it shine." The words unfurled inside me, unearthing something I had long buried. But before I could respond, I was jolted back to reality by the sudden arrival of my mother, her heels clicking loudly against the marble floor. "There you are." Her voice was sharp, carrying the weight of authority and concern. She strode toward me, scanning my face with a critical eye. "I need you in the conference room. A last-minute presentation on the new product launch." Now, I felt the intense surge of anxiety flicker through familiar tight grip of maternal expectation tightening around my chest. "Just a minute, Mom," I murmured, unwilling to let her pull me away just yet. I was talking to, but the janitor had stepped back, understanding the urgency in my mother's voice. There was a flicker of regret in his eyes as he retreated back into the shadows of the bustling lobby. I felt a pang of loss, as if I'd let the opportunity to learn something invaluable slip through my fingers. "Now," she repeated, the tone of command leaving no room for debate. I turned reluctantly, following her lead, the flicker of hope the janitor ignited in me dimming as I accepted the expectation that awaited me. But just as I stepped away, I heard a soft voice call out, "Miss, don't forget to shine." His words wrapped around me like a fragile thread, fragile yet unbreakable. They anchored me as I walked away from the only moment of clarity I'd found in a long time. That night at home, I couldn't sleep. My mind raced as I tossed and turned, wrestling with my identity and the pressure of my mother's dreams. Tears glistened in my eyes as I replayed the scene in my mind, the lobby, the janitor's advice. Just when I thought I could quiet the storm within, my phone chimed with a message. I picked it up, curiosity mingling with dread. The screen illuminated a number I didn't recognize. Cautiously, I tapped it open, and my heart plummeted as I read the words that flashed across the screen. "I know who you are, and I'm here to help you uncover your true potential. Meet me at the coffee shop tomorrow at noon." It's urgent. Who is this? And what do they mean? My heart raced, not just from fear, but from exhilaration, the pulse of a new beginning whispering beneath the surface. The morning hues bled through my curtains, bright but unfocused, much like my mind. I remained tangled in the sheets, a prison of fabric and self-doubt. The message from the unknown number lingered, a beacon of possibility and apprehension. I had half a dozen excuses piling up in my mind. What if it was some sort of prank? Or worse, what if it was someone who truly knew my struggles, exposing me for not living up to my mother's expectations? Regardless, I forced myself to roll out of bed, a fragile resolution forming. Something deep inside urged me to see what this meeting could bring, a whisper that echoed the janitor's reminder to let my light shine. After all, wasn't this, in a way, what I had been searching for? A chance to break free from the confines of expectation and step into a space where I could explore my true self? I made my way to the coffee shop, each step a mini battle against the rising tide of anxiety that threatened to pull me under. The familiar sounds of the bustling city filled my ears, but I felt like a ghost drifting between worlds. Every chirp of laughter or ringing of a phone felt like a reminder that I didn't quite belong to S. I entered the cafe. I scanned the room, adrenaline humming through my veins. My eyes fell upon a figure seated in the corner, partially obscured by shadows and steam rising from a cup of coffee. They raised their head as I approached a woman with kind, knowing eyes and a patient smile. "Hello," she greeted softly. "I'm Laura. Thank you for coming." Hi, I managed, still paralyzed by a mixture of curiosity and wariness. "You messaged me." I did, she said. Her voice had a fresh warmth that cut through my trepidation. "I want to talk about your potential, the kind that's locked away inside you." How did she know me? The question clawed at my insides, but her calm demeanor slowly eased my fears. "You know me. Not in the way you think," she replied, the corner of her mouth twitching upwards. "I've been following your career, and there are whispers about your true talents, gifts you've buried under corporate suits and expectations. I believe you can uncover them if you're willing to try." I sank into a chair across from her, my heart racing with confusion and intrigue. "I don't know what you mean. I'm just employee," I stammered. "And oh, you're much more than that," she countered gently. "But it's time to discover who you really are beyond the titles and the success. You deserve to explore what makes you sing." Her words reverberated through me like a symphony I had long forgotten, a melody silenced by practicality and fear. I replayed the janitor's advice in my mind, urging me to deny the weight of expectation that came from being a successful daughter. But what if I fail? I asked, the vulnerability spilling out of me. What if I let everyone down? Laura leaned forward, her eyes piercing and compassionate. "Failure is part of the journey. Remember, success feels hollow without knowing yourself first. Eventually, you will find those who support you for who you are, not who you are expected to be." Encouraged yet fearful, I allowed myself to lean into the moment. "What do I have to do?" "Just be open," she replied. "Take time to discover your true passions. Start small. Let's meet regularly to talk, share ideas, and explore goals you've always pushed aside. Only you can find your path." As the conversation flowed, I felt the palpable weight of my mother's expectations lift slightly, layered with a thrill of potential. Laura was a stranger, yet a glimmer of hope danced in her words, and I could almost feel the longing deep within me, fluttering in response. The two of us exchanged numbers, and I ventured out, a renewed lightness in my heart. Could this be the beginning of something I'd been yearning for? Could I really, and unexpectedly, step into my own identity? As the day wound down and twilight crept in, I felt a familiar knot of anxiety forming as I prepared for dinner. The reality of my mother's probing questions hung above me like an ominous storm cloud. Feeling trapped, I steadied my breath, resigning myself to the routine that awaited. Dinner was painstakingly predictable. My mother discussed corporate strategies while I nodded, half present, my thoughts flitting from newfound possibilities. Laura, the janitor's wisdom, and the tentative light dawning within me. Then, just as I thought the evening would slide into monotony, my phone buzzed with another message, drawing my attention. I could see the screen light up from my pocket, the familiar notification blaring from my mother's rigorous chat about work. I discreetly glanced down, but my stomach dropped as another text flooded my screen. "This is urgent, and you need to know your position is under scrutiny. You have until the end of the week to prove yourself within the company. Otherwise, things could change drastically." Panic churned in my stomach, eclipsing the small joy I had grasped that day. The facade of hope shattered as I stared into the glazed eyes of my mother, unaware of the storm ready to tear through my carefully crafted world. How could I confront this while honoring the budding parts of me wanting to emerge? In that moment, I felt the walls closing in, the weight of expectation threatening to crush every last thread of independence I had just begun to weave. I was at the precipice of a choice. Would I dive into the depths of who I really was, or cling desperately to the surface of who I was supposed to be? I stared at the message, my fingertips trembling on the screen. Each word from my anonymous source felt like a ticking clock echoing in the hollow chambers of my heart. Your position is under scrutiny. Those words prodded at the raw anxiety bubbling beneath my skin, threatened to spill over. I forced myself to breathe slowly, steady the tumult within, but it felt impossible in that moment. The miniature world I had started to build with Laura's encouragement wobbled precariously at my feet, like a fragile house of cards in a gusty wind. The conversation with my mother continued, her words floating over me in an indistinct haze. I nodded at intervals, an ongoing ritual of dutiful attentiveness. Yet, my focus was a distant star absent and cold. Each time she praised my work, I felt an ache deepening, a split forming between the desires I was tentatively uncovering and the expectations she pressed upon me. As my mother described the latest project at the firm, my mind wandered back to Laura's words. You deserve to explore what makes you sing. But the urgency of my job weighed heavily on my shoulders. Only 2 days remained to prove myself, to appease the corporate overseers lurking in the shadows of my life. I couldn't afford to falter now. Are you even listening? My mother's voice cut through my thoughts, sharp and steady. The reprimanding tone sent heat flushing to my cheeks. I opened my mouth to excuse myself, but the words stuck like a bitter pill that I am trying. I finally mustered, guilt flushing through me like poison. I'm just thinking. Sorry, I added, hoping to placate her. She leaned back, crossing her arms, her brow furrowed with a familiar disappointment. I could practically see the myriad expectations forming in her mind, calculations prioritizing practicality over the abstract notion of passion I had been so hungry to embrace. Though the conversation continued, I felt lost in a swirl of emotions. My mother spoke of hard work and merit, but all I could hear were Laura's words, like a lighthouse guiding me through a chaotic sea. I desperately wanted to voice my yearnings, but couldn't bring myself to break the chains that anchored me to the notion of compliance. After dinner, I retreated to my room, the familiar fortress of solitude. My phone buzzed again, interrupting the silence. Another message from the unknown sender, a new pang of panic mingling with curiosity. I opened it cautiously. Don't lose hope. Take a risk. You don't have to follow the path laid out for you. You have options. There was something in the tone of that message that seemed almost personal. A nudge from the universe? A friend in disguise? I could feel my heart thumping louder in my ears. The notion that someone wanted me to persevere, igniting a small yet defiantly bright flame inside me. The next morning, as I sipped my coffee, I decided I wouldn't succumb to fear. I couldn't let my mother drown out the spark Laura had ignited. Instead, I resolved to reach out to Laura to set up our next meeting sooner. I texted her, my words laced with both excitement and dread. Can we meet today? I need to talk. Laying my phone down, the soft buzz roared back at me with an unexpected quick reply. Absolutely. Let's meet in an hour. I hurriedly threw on some clothes, adrenaline fueling my every action. As I made my way to the cafe, uncertainty flooded me all over again. What if this was a mistake? What if I couldn't articulate what I wanted from life? As I entered the cafe, I discovered Laura already seated, a welcoming smile gracing her features. Yet this time, I arrived carrying a weight far heavier than before. You look tense. What's on your mind? She asked, her tone like a warm embrace. I got a message last night. I admitted, my voice quaking slightly. Someone warned me about my job security. I feel like I'm on a tightrope, and I never even wanted to be up here. Laura's expression shifted into a deep understanding. And that makes perfect sense. Change brings anxiety, especially when you face expectations, whether they're from the corporate world or from family. Exactly. But I can't shake this need to find out who I truly am. I confessed. I want more than just being a cog in a machine, but I don't know how to navigate the realities that keep pulling me back, and am terrified of what happens if I step away. Laura leaned back thoughtfully, her finger tapping the cup before her. Finding yourself requires a certain amount of risk. It's like standing at the edge of a diving board. You'll feel the fear in your gut, but when you jump, you might discover a part of you didn't even know was there. Just then, as I pondered her words, the coffee shop's buzz faded into the background, giving rise to the weight of Laura's statement. I nodded, feeling as if each word dripped honey into my anxious heart. But the fear of the unknown kept pulling me back, dark and terrifying. What if I lost everything? Suddenly, a shadow loomed behind me, and as I turned, my heart sank. It was my mother, her eyes scanning the cafe, the familiar disapproval lining her features. All of my newfound light seemed to flicker dimly in her presence. "I knew I'd find you here," she asserted, her tone triumphant and tinged with promise. "We need to talk about your future. Now." The fire inside me blazed with fury and fear, clashing in an agonizing battle for dominance. The very foundation of my burgeoning independence crumbled beneath her piercing gaze, and I felt its swell of hesitation rising like a tide, threatening to drown me once more. "Can you give me a minute?" I stammered, unsure whether I was asking Laura or my mother. Laura's eyes flicked from me to my mom, correcting her posture and maintaining her dignity. "It's all right. We'll take a quick break," she nodded, leaving me in a whirlwind of thoughts. I took a deep breath, the weight doubling on my shoulders as I prepared to confront my mother. This was the moment, either a chance to change course or sink deeper into the familiar abyss that loomed behind me. The stakes couldn't be higher, and I knew that choosing one path over another could forever alter my journey. With every ounce of courage hummed in my spirit, I turned to my mother, ready to stand my ground. Would I find my voice amidst the chaos, or would I let her expectations once again dictate my life? The atmosphere felt thick as I faced my mother, the familiar weight of her expectations clinging to me like an unwelcome shroud. Her gaze bore into me, sharp and unyielding, demanding submission. A small part of me pondered how much easier it would be to surrender again, to sidestep the storm brewing on the horizon. But as I looked past her, a flicker of Laura's words danced in my mind, lighting my path in this murky fog of fear. "Mom, please, can we talk about this later?" The request slipped from my lips barely above a whisper, the tremor in my voice betraying the resolve I was fighting to summon. "This is about your future. Your whole life is at stake, and you want to delay?" She snapped, irritation swirling in her tone. Every syllable painfully reminded me of the years spent prioritizing her vision over my own. I felt the weight of my resolve begin to falter. My heart raced, the gathering storm of anxiety knocking against the walls of my chest. I could almost see the threads of expectation pulling tight. Yet, I could also feel the ghost of the message from my anonymous source, the unshakable belief buried within it urging me onward. That I glanced around at the other patrons, the chatter muted, as if the universe was holding its breath alongside me, waiting for my response. Then, just to my right, I spotted Dylan, the janitor from the firm. He was tidying up the cafe, his khaki uniform a stark contrast to the formal suits of the corporate world that frequently filled the seats. For a heartbeat, our eyes met, and in that fleeting moment, an unspoken understanding seemed to pass between us. I felt a cascade of warmth spread through me, an echo of kindness that stood defiant against the chill of my mother's disapproval. "Your future can't be dictated by fear," he said quietly, though loud enough for me to hear. "Life has a way of surprising you when you're brave enough to leap. So go ahead, take that jump." My breath caught in my throat as the words resonated within. Here he was, a man who navigated the undercurrents of the corporate world unseen, yet offering me clarity at this moment where all felt lost. I had never seen him as anything more than a casual figure in the background until now, but somehow he had become a lifeline. "See?" My mother interjected, her voice dripping with skepticism. Even he can see that you need to prioritize your responsibilities over dreams, over whatever it is you think you're trying to pursue. Anger flared within me. It was infuriating how she would leverage someone else's wisdom to emphasize her rationale while disregarding the very essence of what I truly wanted. Mom, it's not that simple, I responded, pushing back against the rising tide of her criticism. There's so much more to life than just sticking to the safe path. I can't keep ignoring that. I can't believe you're taking advice from someone like him. She countered, her brows knitting together as she placed her hands on her hips, her frustration palpable in the air. Have you forgotten how much we've sacrificed so you could have a stable future? In that moment, I felt the weight of her words crash down on me, memories swirling around my mind like leaves caught in a storm. Every summer spent in libraries studying, every late-night recitation of facts, every moment when I had chosen work over friends, was I really prepared to dismantle that all for a chance at something ephemeral like happiness? You're right. I can't forget, I replied softly, my voice wavering. But maybe a life dictated by compliance is a sacrifice of its own kind. The cafe had filled with a tense silence, the world momentarily suspended as the weight of my words hung heavy in the air. My mother's face shifted, the flicker of confusion crossing her features. What exactly are you trying to say? She demanded, but there was an undercurrent of apprehension straining her authority. Just then, Laura returned, sensing the shift as she stepped closer, her attention divided between my mother and me, as if to help bridge the widening chasm. I'm sorry for leaving, but it seemed important to give you both some space. We are having a very important conversation, my mother stated curtly, crossing her arms, an act of defiance blooming within me. I can see that, Laura responded, her voice imbued with calmness that cut through the tension. But perhaps it's a conversation that needs to be had in more than one context? Both viewpoints have value. As I absorbed Laura's reassuring presence, the magic began to return to my thinking. I was surrounded by individuals who believed in different paths. Forging my own seemed within reach, if only I could summon the courage to chase after it. I want to talk about what matters. And that's not just fitting into someone else's plan, I replied, feeling the words break free, echoing through the labyrinth of uncertainties in my heart. Feeling that flicker ignited by Dylan's encouragement merge with Laura's unwavering support sparked a brighter flame within me. Before I could reconsider, I turned directly to my mother. I want to explore those dreams. I want my own goals for once, not just the ones you've set out for me. Her expression hardened, but beneath the steel, I glimpsed something else, a flicker of something almost maternal concern mixed with the struggle to adapt to this fractured dynamic. As she opened her mouth to respond, a sharp ping from my phone interrupted, and I glanced down, my heart skittering. A new message from my anonymous source flashed across the screen. Another alarm ringing through my life. Trust yourself, but be prepared for the challenge that follows. The stakes have risen that I looked back to my mother and saw not just disappointment, but a deeper understanding starting to bloom amidst the chaos. This moment was our precipicia brink that would either lead to my freedom or plunge me directly into the abyss of expectations. Before I could process my next move, I felt the pull of fate grasping my heart with cold fingers, waiting to see which path I would ultimately embrace. In this dizzying haze, a wave of clarity washed over me, but would it be enough? What awaited me on the other side of truth when my mother's vision battled against my own desires? The unknown loomed large, and my heartbeat quickened, fraught with both fear and anticipation as I prepared to face whatever was about to unfold. The cafe felt transformed, brightened by the spark ignited in me. Yet, the shadows of worry loomed ever closer. My mother's eyes flashed with indignation, but for the first time, they held a flicker of something else, perhaps surprise or even uncertainty. It was enough to fortify my resolve. Your dreams aren't going to buy you security, she shot back, but her voice faltered. Beneath her anger, I sensed something deeper was stirring. Maybe even regret. I turned my gaze away, partially to compose myself and partially to distance myself from the brewing conflict. As I did, I caught a glimpse of Dylan. He was quietly wiping tables, but the calm conviction he'd shared with me earlier echoed in the back of my mind. It had become a lifeline, tethering me to the courage I so desperately needed. Sometimes, Laura intervened gently. Taking that leap leads you to greater things than what was originally planned. My mother opened her mouth, poised to argue, but instead, she fell silent. The weight of our collective breaths hovered in the air, and for a moment, I felt the collective hope of the cave invisible threads knit us all together, strangers drawn into my moment of upheaval. Come on, Mom, I pressed, sensing an opening. You've always taught me that hard work and dedication will pay off. So why can't I dedicate that same energy towards my own passions instead of just the ones you crafted for me? I only want what's best for you. Her voice trembled, and I saw the glimmer of unshed tears in her eyes. After everything we did, Mom, my heart ached for her, torn between defending my own dreams and the undeniable sacrifices she had made. Please, I need to know if you believe in me. Just once. Not my future as you see it, but in my ability to carve my own path. Dylan's steady focus never wavered. I caught him glancing over occasionally. His presence, without expectation, felt like a balm. One that soothed the jagged edges of the battle taking place in my family. Oh, you really think it's wise to gamble everything on a whim? My mother murmured, and for a heartbeat, I thought I saw the possibility of acceptance glimmer in her expression. I'm not looking to gamble, I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. I just want to explore, to grow into someone who can thrive on her own terms. Isn't that what you've always wanted from me? She faltered, her barriers momentarily shattered. It was more than I could have hoped for, but before either of us could grasp the moment, my phone buzzed again. It felt almost punitive, interrupting the fragile truce that had begun to form. What now? I said to myself, almost too overwhelmed to read it, but the urgency pressed upon me like a weight, and I glanced down. They're watching you. Don't forget that. The words coiled around my insides, seeping into my thoughts. My heart raced. They were watching? Who were they? My breath caught as I felt the room sink into silence again, the laughter and chatter of earlier fading into the background. A chill settled in the pit of my stomach, and I instinctively looked around the cafe. Who's watching you? Laura asked, her voice gathering my attention, pulling me back from the precipice of panic. I opened my mouth, searching for a response, attempting to articulate the confusion spinning in my mind, but nothing coherent formed. The people that support them, my mother interjected, her features hardening, a quick return to defense as she crossed her arms again. This is exactly why you need to stick to what's safe, darling. The world doesn't care about dreams. It only rewards stability. But I was no longer just her daughter. A deep-seated urge was rising inside me, an ethereal whisper pushing me forward, demanding that I break free from the invisible chains that bound me. I won't live my life dictated by fear, I said, feeling the power of my own conviction. If they're watching, let them. I can navigate my own way. I can't say that would be wise, my mother countered, and I saw the worry etched in every line of her face. You don't know how deep the stakes run. Maybe they'll help me, I whispered, contemplating how hidden the connections could be, how the corporate world was both a labyrinth of opportunity and a trap of complication. In that moment, something inside me shifted. I was no longer just a daughter, but a seeker of truths and explorer in a world that had been painstakingly constructed by others. It was terrifying, yet exhilarating. But I sensed there was a web of danger lurking in that statement, an invisible threat unfolding around me. What do you mean? Laura asked, her concern palpable, but as I caught her gaze, I felt something amplify in that exchange of promise of solidarity. I have to find out, I breathed, my heart racing with apprehension and excitement, each pulse echoing the potential transformation looming ahead. I can't let fear dictate my actions. Not anymore. Moments stretched painfully, and I felt breaths hitching, emotions weaving a tapestry of uncertainty between us. I could see the crossroads before me. The path less taken glimmered enticingly, inviting me to step forward while shadows of my past flickered just beyond, whispering warnings. Just as I felt the grounding certainty beneath me begin to slip away, the bell over the cafe door jingled abruptly. All heads turned as a tall figure stepped through, their shadow overtaking the light. I suddenly felt an unidentifiable force coiling in my chest. Whoever that was, I knew they carried a weight of importance not just to me, but to the life I was on the cusp of choosing. The air thickened again, and I readied myself for what would unfold. In that electrifying moment of uncertainty, I realized that the journey ahead could alter everything I thought I understood. The atmosphere in the cafe shifted with the entrance of the new figure, an unexpected tension settling like a storm cloud overhead. My heart raced as I instinctively searched for recognition in the crowd. The tall silhouette moved with an air of authority, but there was something almost tragic in their posture. The whisper of my phone still echoed in my mind. They were watching me, and as the figure moved closer, it became clear that they were part of that watchful presence. Who I began, but my words died in my throat as I caught sight of a familiar face. It was Greg, the owner of the art gallery where I had applied for an internship. His eyes, usually bright and welcoming, seemed shadowed today, heavy with an unspoken burden. The whisper of hope I had clung to started to look fragile under the weight of his demeanor. Greg? I forced my voice to work above the din of silence. What are you doing here? His gaze met mine momentarily, and I was struck by the depth of emotion swirling within him, concern mingled with a hesitance that set my instincts on high alert. Can we talk? His words were barely louder than a whisper, but they carried a gravity that pulled me closer. I don't think this is a good time, my mother interjected, her protective instincts flaring as she stepped in front of me, arms crossed defensively. I'm not sure you understand the situation, sir, but Greg brushed past her, his focus unwavering. I need her, he said firmly, directing his attention solely at me. Need me? For what? I questioned, a mix of curiosity and apprehension flooding my senses. I felt the world around us contracting, a bubble containing only the three of us amidst the din of the cafe, the other patron's mere backdrop to a scene of increasing importance. Because I believe in her, Greg asserted, his voice gaining strength. And she deserves a chancino. She deserves the opportunity to take that leap, just like you did back then, Laura. He glanced at my mother, and I could see the flicker of old memories igniting her gaze. Maybe it's time for both of you to embrace a little risk. Why mother's expression shifted from concern to incredulity. You can't seriously be suggesting she dive headfirst into something she knows nothing about. It's not just about dreams. It's about preparation and survival. Everywhere is filled with risks, Greg replied. What matters is whether we face them or let them define us. There are opportunities waiting, and they won't be around forever. As his words sunk in, a spark ignited within me an awareness of the importance of seizing the moment and not allowing fear to claim my future. But my mind spun with confusion. The shadows from my mother's fears wrestled with the bright light of possibility Greg was offering. Why now? I finally managed to ask, my heart pounding, what's changed? You're not just an intern to me, he answered, a softness returning to his voice. What you have to offer is significant, more than you realize. I wanted to approach you for something bigger, but it's complicated. There was a pause that stretched unnaturally, the weight of the words hanging heavy between us. What do you mean complicated? My voice was steadier than I felt, but I was grasping for clarity that seemed just out of reach. Greg inhaled deeply, the deep lines in his face revealing the burdens of his own choices. Sometimes, people have to make sacrifices for their passions. I was hoping to elevate the gallery's outreach, but I was met with resistant forces, people who want to keep things stagnant. I need someone capable of change, and I think that's you. Change? My mother echoed incredulously, her tone sharp. You're asking her to gamble with her future. This whole idea of yours sounds reckless. Sometimes, Greg countered, you have to chase down what matters, even if it's terrifying. This isn't just about career paths. It's about finding purpose. His words reverberated inside me, igniting a clash of emotions. Could this be the moment I had been waiting for? But doubt pooled in the recesses of my mind, a darkness whispering of risks that could shatter my fragile dreams. Still, I felt something fresh begin to bloom, something warm amidst the swirling chaos. I want to know more, I said quietly, my voice growing in certainty. But what sacrifices would I have to make? Before Greg could respond, the atmosphere shifted again. The cafe door swung open once more. This time, it was my father, his silhouette framed in the sunlight, a shadow from a past I had hoped to escape. I felt my heart drop into my stomach, the revelation dawning like a thunderclap. He was supposed to be taken care of safely, tucked away in a distant life that no longer led to mine. Dad? The word slipped from my lips before I could catch it, and every eye in the cafe turned towards him, shock rippling through the room. "What are you doing here?" my mother demanded, her voice laced with a mixture of disbelief and fear, as if confronting a ghost she thought had vanished for good. I stood between the two of them. The burgeoning opportunity, alongside my mother's fears, felt like a tightening noose. The moment felt precarious, and any hopes I had begun to foster started to teeter on the edge of despair. The watchful presence in my life had only just begun to unravel, and now it felt as if the past was rushing back to confront me all at once. My father's gaze swept across the cafe, settling on my mother with a mix of anxiety and determination. He looked older than I remembered, the lines on his face deeper and darker. I could see the struggle of regret and longing etched into his features, emotions close to the surface like rippling water. The air felt charged with the weight of unprocessed history, and my heart raced as I grappled with what this new presence meant for all of us. "Why are you here?" my mother asked again, her voice steady but her hands trembling slightly. I sensed a storm brewing beneath her calm exterior, her protective instincts flaring in response to a man who had once torn our family apart. "Laura," he started, his voice low, "I just wanted to see you." "I never know." My mother cut him off sharply, stepping forward as if trying to shield me from the consequences of his presence. "You've had more than enough chances. You lost that right when you left." Pain flickered through my father's eyes, but he didn't waver. Instead, he turned to me, his gaze searching. "I thought maybe we could start over, just the two of us. I've been trying to make things right." "Make things right?" I echoed, my voice laced with disbelief. "You're the one who walked away. Do you understand how easy it is to say that now? I've built an entire life without you, and now you show up at the worst moment possible." "Laura, please," he pleaded, taking a step closer. "This is not how I wanted it to be." "I want to what?" I interrupted, my emotions erupting one after the other like fireworks. "What do you want from me?" "You come back, and suddenly I'm just supposed to accept you, as if years of absence can be erased by a few words." Greg stood silently, observing the escalating conflict with a furrowed brow, a silent witness caught in familial turmoil. My mother remained firm, her stance resolute, while I felt the pull of dual loyalties clawing at my heart. "I ask this how you've always envisioned your return?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Showing up when it's most convenient for you, using my hopes against me just as you did before." "No, that's not it," he said, his voice rising. "I am trying to do better. I'm trying to change." "I'm sick, stop," I whispered, refusing to let the gravity of his words drag me into a rabbit hole of old fears. "You're sick? You think I should feel sorry for you? You had all the chances you needed, and you threw them away." In that instant, something shifted. Caught between the unresolved tension with my father and the flicker of opportunity with Greg, I felt my foundation crumble. The cafe around us seemed to fade into a blur. It was just us, this triangular standoff of a family that had forgotten how to be one. Greg's steady voice broke through the noise. "Laura, maybe now's not the right time for this conversation," he offered gently, trying to defuse the situation, but I could hardly hear him. My focus was solely on the man I had resented for years, a man I was supposed to forgive because he claimed to be changing. "Maybe I'm not ready to hear you," I admitted, my voice cracking. "Maybe I need to focus on my future instead of this. I can't keep looking back, but you don't have to carry this alone." Greg intervened softly, stepping closer as if to provide a grounding presence amidst the emotional storm. Sometimes confronting the past helps you understand the future you're building. The sincerity in his voice offered a flicker of warmth, but it felt overshadowed by my father's turmoil and my mother's unyielding demeanor. My heart hammered as I thought of the opportunity Greg had hinted at, the possibility of something greater. Yet, how could I hope to reach for that when the root of my pain stood before me? I'm not sure what better looks like, Dad, I said, barely keeping my composure. And I'm scared to find out. Silence fell between us, thick like fog. My father appeared as if he wanted to reach out, but he stayed rooted in place, his regret palpable. At that moment, a server shuffled by, delivering a latte to another table. As she brushed past, she offered me a fleeting smile, a reminder of the kindness that still existed. In moments overshadowed by conflict, it was a small thing, but somehow it felt like a lifeline. Before I could explore the fleeting warmth of that connection, my phone buzzed in my pocket, a message that delivered a jolt of reality, breaking the fragile moment apart like glass shattering on tile. That I quickly glanced at the screen, heart plummeting as I read the words. We need to talk. It's about Greg. It's urgent. The sender's name blazed like a warning sign. One of Greg's colleagues. Staring at the screen, I felt a shiver of fear creep in, a new layer of complexity intertwining with everything I thought I had to navigate. The past was colliding with the present, and suddenly, my future seemed further away than ever. Laura, what is it? Greg asked, concern etched across his face. My heart raced, my emotions spiraling as I sought to comprehend the implications of the message. Point two, don't know. I stammered, an edge of panic slipping into my voice. But what if it changes everything? My father looked on, confusion clouding his features as he processed the scene. And in that moment of truth, with old wounds still raw, I realized that I stood at a precipice, grappling with choice. Do I dive into the uncertainty of a future full of potential, or do I remain tethered to a past I desperately wanted to escape? As my heart thundered in my chest, the weight of the decision felt suffocating, each breath an echo of the chaos around me. Behind me came a shuffling of chairs and murmurs, the reality of the cafe creeping back into focus. But within me arose the stark realization that clarity often comes shrouded in shadows, and I was standing at their edge, more lost than before. The cafe buzzed around me, the chatter of patrons and the hiss of the espresso machine feeling surreal against the tempest of emotions raging within. The message from Greg's colleague echoed in my mind, each word a tidal wave pulling under my fragile resolve. I felt as though I was teetering on the brink, ready to plunge into a depth I didn't know if I could navigate. Laura, Greg's voice broke through my fog of confusion. What does it say? Is everything okay? I turned the phone towards him, nearly trembling with uncertainty. I don't know. It just feels like something huge is about to happen. What if it changes everything between us? The thought struck a painful chord, reverberating through my heart like a dull ache. He took a moment to absorb the gravity of the situation. If it's about me, I want you to know that we can handle it. Together, I clung to his words like a lifeline, my gaze darting from my father, whose silhouette remained a heavy presence, to Greg, who stood strong and unwavering. With each passing moment, the past twisted around my heart, anchoring me to fears I desperately wanted to escape. I need time, Greg, I said, my voice barely a whisper. The layers of this everything that's happening, they're too much. Greg nodded, his expression compassionate, but there was a flicker of doubt in his eyes. I understand. Just remember, you're not alone in this. The weight of that statement hovered like a cloud. Yet what did I know about being vulnerable? The thought of revealing my fears felt like standing naked before a roaring crowd. Lifting my gaze, I caught sight of my father, whose countenance had softened, the sharp edges of anger in his eyes dulled by an emotion I couldn't quite label. Laura, he finally spoke up, his voice quavering. I didn't come here to hurt you. I just want a chance to explain. Explain what? I interrupted, an urgent need to protect myself surging within me. What could you possibly say that would change the past? Before he could respond, a commotion at the entrance of the cafe caught everyone's attention. The door swung open with a brisk jingle, letting in a gust of cold air and unexpectedly a group of children, smiles wide and laughter echoing. They were probably on a field trip, chaperoned by a few tired-looking teachers. Their cheerful energy is stark contrast to our somber tableau. One child, a little girl with pigtails, bounded straight towards me, waving a handwritten card. "Excuse me, miss. Would you like one of our kindness cards? It's for someone who looks like they need a smile." The pure sincerity in her eyes caught me off guard. I instinctively glanced back at Greg and my father, unsure of how to respond. The lunch rush had dulled our emotional fires, but this child's innocence sparked bright. In that brief moment, everything shifted on its axis. The weight of my father's presence, the uncertainty of Greg's situation, and my swirling fears seemed to retreat, if only for a heartbeat that, sure, I managed, accepting the card with trembling fingers. The little girl beamed up at me, animated by unfiltered joy, and suddenly, for the first time in ages, I felt a flicker of hope amid the darkness. "Thank you," I said, my heart warming at the unexpected kindness. She skipped back to her group, leaving me with the card clenched in my palm. The handwritten note read, "Your smile can change the world." I held it up as if it were a talisman. Maybe the world was not entirely bleak. Maybe there were moments of light, even in the depths of heartache. My father cleared his throat, eyes reflecting something uncharacteristic: vulnerability. "You know, Laura, even when I was lost, I always wished for you to be happy. I've made a mess of things, but I can't stand watching you suffer in silence. You would know," I said sarcastically, but with an edge of fragility as I felt the delicate layers of my anger starting to peel away. Yet his sincerity compelled me to listen. "This isn't just about you, Dad. I'm the one facing this, and you just came back out of nowhere when I thought I had finally found my way." Greg stepped in, his voice calm and warm. "Laura, what you just received is a reminder that kindness exists, even among the chaos. Your story isn't only woven by those who have hurt you, but also by those who love you and see your worth." The air thickened with emotions too complex to articulate. I felt a tear slip loose, an unexpected release of pent-up anguish. And suddenly all that was left in the wake of the little girl's smile was an urge to confront the truth standing between my father, Greg, and me. "Please," I said, my voice hardly above a whisper. "Just show me you're trying to." In that moment, as my heart flickered with cautious hope, my phone buzzed again, harsh against the tender emotional landscape I was navigating. Another message. The screen lit up, and I braced myself when I read it, the weight of the words twisting the knife deeper. "I need to warn you about Greg. There's something you don't know," I gasped aloud, the walls closing in as cold fear gripped me. "What now?" I murmured, the hope from before quickly fading. My heart sank as I realized I was facing yet another layer in this labyrinth of choices, a daunting journey where the light grew dimmer with every revelation. I stood there, stunned, the message's words echoing in my mind like thunder. I could feel every gaze on me, a focused energy dying down into an uncomfortable silence. Greg, my father, even the fleeting cheerfulness of the little girl from moments ago, evaporated into the air. Everything felt suspended, timeless, as if the universe was waiting for me to choose how to navigate this demanding moment. "What is it?" Greg asked, concern melding with confusion, but I could scarcely meet his eyes. The question that hung between us awaited an answer I wasn't sure I could give. How could I process the magnitude of this situation when every piece seemed to fight against one another? The hopes Greg represented, the fears lurking in my father's shadow, and a wave of uncertainty that threatened to overtake me completely. "I just received a message," I stammered, my voice trembling, the weight of previous heartaches rising to the surface. "It says they need to warn me about you." The words felt heavy, and the air grew thicker with unspoken truths, each of us trapped in an unyielding web that only intensified by my revelation. I desperately wanted to retract my statement, to hide from the implications, but the truth couldn't be undone. Every glance steered toward Greg, shadows of doubt settling in the crinkles of his brow. "What are they warning you about?" he demanded gently, a knot forming in his throat as he tried to grasp the sudden shift in energy. I hesitated, every urge to protect him clashing with the insistence of reality. "I don't know," I finally admitted, my heart racing, a whirlwind of fragmented emotions cascading within. "But I can't ignore it either." And there was the crux of it all. Could I afford to uproot myself once again, to tread the treacherous ground of uncertainty when my instincts screamed caution? "Let's step outside," Greg began, his voice firm but soothing. But at that moment, it felt like we were standing at the edge of two worlds, ours collapsing in on itself, threatening to shatter under the weight of everything we had built up in this fragile moment. "Laura, don't let someone else dictate your perception of him," my father interjected, stepping closer, a hint of desperation creeping into his tone. "Listen to what you want, not what others say you should perceive." That was a contradiction that resonated deep within me. I had built walls tall and fort-like against trusting anyone, but had also felt like a prisoner behind them. My father's words hung between us, a bridge I never thought we might stand on again. In that flicker of connection, I felt the chains shaking, the potential to untether from the pain that had defined all my actions. "Are you ready to choose?" I could almost hear the silent request from within my own heart, yearning to embrace the freedom of choice beyond expectations, doubts lingering still, like ghosts in the corners of my mind. "I need to understand, Greg." He nodded, his eyes filled with an earnestness that felt grounding amidst the chaos. The gravity of his presence seemed to anchor me to the decision, approaching like a wave on a beach. "Okay, you deserve to know everything." He stepped closer, thoughts weaving through the moments shared in that enigmatic cafe. "Let me explain everything about my involvement, about the things you don't know." The urgency in his voice drew me in, yet it was a perilous dance between fear and hope, the truth I was grappling for swirling along with the uncertainty of the future looming ahead. Taking a deep breath, I prepared myself for whatever came next. "I know I need this decision to be mine, but if you're involved in something that puts me at risk, I won't let you fall," Greg assured, and as I scanned his face, I realized how desperately I wanted to believe him. Yet lingering questions warned me against the light of naivety. Underneath the warmth lay a risk that could cut deeper than I was ready to process. What better anchors than the painful memories of my father's absence and the life I had forged without him? The paths of today felt tender, fragile, like watching the first blossoms appear on a tree as the winter finally relinquishes its grip. And yet, there they remain, the layers of fear threatening to overshadow that fragile hope. "Can I trust you, Greg?" I whispered. "Can you promise me this won't end the way everything else has?" The vulnerability hung in the air, a silent pact waiting to be forged. "Laura," he said, his voice steady, "I promise you this is real, and it doesn't need to end the way anything has before. But I need your trust, too. What I'm about to share is risky, but it matters, and it can lead us somewhere beautiful." I paused, absorbing the weight of his words. Was this the gamble I was ready to take? To leap into an unknown space, one filled not just with potential, but also the possibility of heartbreak? The foundation was fragile, but I suddenly felt the warmth of that child's card in my pocket, a reminder of the power of kindness, of hope, of choosing to step into light amidst the darkness. "Let's talk," I said firmly, the determined flicker in my chest burning brighter. "But we do it together. We confront whatever this is. Nobody needs to be alone in this," Greg replied, a soft smile glimmering through the tension enveloping us. And why father's expression melted slightly, acceptance mingling with the residual fear. "If you choose to confront the past, you're not just stepping into the unknown. You're crafting your own narrative. Your future, however tumultuous, will be yours." "I know, Dad," I said, softening. It felt almost unnatural to evoke the past while edging closer to something new, but I sensed the truth beyond our tangled emotions, one that spoke of healing, forgiveness, and perhaps a bridge back to each other. We stepped outside into the afternoon air, the chill biting lightly against my skin, the cafe dwindling behind us. My heart echoed the rhythm of change, the weight of possibility shimmering just ahead, unfurling endlessly into a horizon I yearned to embrace. "Let's navigate this together," I said, facing Greg, certainty blooming in my spirit. "I'm ready to stand tall and see where this journey leads, even if I falter along the way." And for the first time in ages, hope began to swell within me like a sun breaking through the clouds, a powerful beacon amidst the unknown, binding us together in the beautifully chaotic tapestry of trust and light. As the winds swirled around us, I felt my heart race, the echoes of countless choices shaping the landscape ahead. I was free. "Ready?" Greg asked quietly, eyes clear with promise. "Yes," I breathed, taking the step forward, one that felt like as much a leap into the unknown as it was a return home. And for the first time, I genuinely felt I could shine. With that thought, I stepped into the light, ready for whatever came next.